Okay. I know you saw the thumbnail for this video, but hear me out. I love Saiki K. I love the anime, I love the little bit of the manga, I just love it. There's even a picture of me cosplaying as Saiki. It doesn't look great, but hey, what are you gonna do? It's one of the funniest anime of all time, or at least one of the funniest anime I've seen in a good bit, and I thoroughly enjoy and recommend it. That being said, come on, can some of us agree that Season 2 wasn't perfect? Oh boy, this is going to be a controversial one. Just sit through the intro and I'll show you what I mean. I gotta say, I wasn't completely surprised that this show got a Season 2, but it was a little curious. I mean, the end of Season 1, Saiki grows to accept his friends, and they basically move on with their lives, or at least move on as much as they can, so I wasn't really sure what Season 2 could bring until I started to read the manga, and that might have been my first problem. Honestly, I'm more of an anime person, not a manga person. I won't necessarily doubt you if you tell me you enjoyed the manga of something. I think I just prefer digesting it through an anime type of thing, if that makes any sense. Honestly, I just think the funny voices and everything really do help the show, because Saiki K has a great cast of voice actors and actresses, who sadly wouldn't be returning for Season 2. Yeah. For those of you who didn't know, I watched the dub, and the dub, I would say, is probably better than the sub. For all the things I say about Funimation, and they deserve most of it, they had some awesome people behind the voices. For example, David Wald voicing Nendo was probably a personal favorite of mine. That dude was amazing.
Hold on a sec, Teach. His fainting was real. Didn't you just hear him say it? Root sickness.
Holy crap, he's dumb. How could anyone mistake ruse for roots?
What?
I'm really not 100% sure how Funimation didn't get Saiki K for Season 2, and I don't really have any legitimate confirmation on anything. But if I had to make the most baseless of speculation, it was probably promotion. Seriously, almost nobody knew this show was out, especially a dub of it. Overall though, a lot of the Japanese voices are fun, so let's just get into it. Saiki K Season 2 basically starts off as it normally would. Saiki basically introducing the character, showing off his powers, etc, etc. At the first part, nothing's really wrong. Everything's kind of par for the course. Everything seems normal, well, as normal as it can get for a show like this. But then we start to notice some changes. For example, apparently Yumahara now knows that Teruhashi likes Saiki. And I'm gonna be honest, that's a little disappointing for me. I kind of like the idea that Yumahara thought Teruhashi liked Nendo. I thought it could have led to some hilarious jokes, but for one reason or another, they just seemed to drop it. Not really sure why, but hey, I'm not writing it. And for those of you who don't like the Saiki Teruhashi ship, I am sorry, because Yumahara brings it up every single chance she gets. I like the character and all, she's a fine character and everything, but dear lord, she kind of gets obsessive about it. And once again, I know it's a gag, but it's just not personally a gag that works for me, personally. But that, once again, that's just me, and I know how many people are probably trying to burn my channel to the ground just because of it. But we've been through worse. Speaking of changes, there are also a lot of new characters. Most notably, in my opinion, Ayura Makoto. She's a soothsayer who's one of the few people who notices what Saiki's powers are, and she helps him with it. And overall, I'd actually say I really liked her. I actually found myself enjoying her a lot more than I thought I would. Probably because she actually uses her powers to help people. For a price, but it's better than what Teritsuka would do, which is just nothing good. Nothing good at all. There's also Akechi, a childhood friend of Saiki's who talks way too much and basically always tries to figure out his powers. I'm not entirely sure what the point of this character was, considering, well, this series is already known for having people talk way too fast, Yeah, this is the reason why I said I actually prefer the dub, because I could actually understand stuff. But the sub is way too fast. I can barely read at the first grade level, so this is not going to help me. He actually gets an episode towards the end of the series where we see a lot of his backstory and his interactions with Saiki. It's not a bad episode by any means, but it did kind of feel long at times, but oh well. I think one of my favorite episodes of Season 1 of Saiki K probably had to have been the school trip to Okinawa. There were a lot of funny moments, some great moments between the characters and their developments, and also an awesome ending with Saiki realizing that these people are his friends and not just a bunch of nuisances. It's a nice touch, which is exactly why they decide to just completely redo it. So basically, the rich guy Psycho invites everybody onto his yacht for a vacation style thing. Honestly, this episode is kind of weak. This whole arc just isn't really my favorite. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of hilarious jokes and some touching moments, but I just felt like it might have gone a little bit too long. Not to mention the whole aftermath of the newspaper crew, probably my least favorite characters added, basically trying to investigate and harass everybody involved. Just not a good set of characters in my opinion. Speaking of the newspaper crew, their main target throughout the season seems to be Teruhashi. And, alright, let's get this out of the way. I know I said before in videos that I don't like Teruhashi, or that I even hate Teruhashi, but I don't think that's completely it. Part of me just really got annoyed with her. Not necessarily anything she said or did, but the point of, it felt like every other episode she was the main focus. It got really, really annoying sometimes, and some of you might be thinking, oh, well, she's a funny character, so it makes sense. I'm like, okay, that's great, but almost everybody in the show is a funny character. I'm not saying completely get rid of her from the show, despite the fact that some fans might feel that way, and I don't completely blame you for that, but I just felt like you could have cut back on about half of her episodes and we would have been good. And we did not need Teruhashi 2.0.
私がスーパー美少女だからよ。
いや、誰だよ。いつも通りテルハスさんかと思ったら誰だよ、君は。
メガネもこっち見てるし。
Imu Rifuta. Seriously, she brought nothing to me. I don't remember laughing at anything she said even once, and not even in an ironic way. Seriously, what was even the point of her? I just found her so obnoxious. I didn't even want her on the show. Another one of the changes they made was to the theme song and the ending theme, which, duh, makes sense. It's a new season. But I don't necessarily think it was for the better. The first opening of Season 2's Silent Prisoner is flippin' hilarious, but it also really does a good job of showing the chaotic nature of the show. It worked really well. The first ending of Season 2, look, I'm sorry, but it was just way too cartoonishly goofy for me. It just felt silly. It didn't work for me. I'm sorry, that's the most I can say on it. Because I guess when I said cut back on the Teruhashi in Season 2, they decided, screw it, let's just give him more. Okay, that's all I'm going to say on it. That being said though, with all the pseudo-complaining I've been doing about Season 2, there is one character I neglected to mention. The legendary, the greatest, the most normal character in the whole show, Sato. I mean, they really knocked it out of the park with this character. I mean, he's the perfect character, and by perfect, I simply just mean he's normal. Normal, normal, normal. And that's kind of what makes him perfect. He's the most averagely bland character in the entire show. A show full of misfits and crazy characters, and they still managed to write this character absolutely perfectly. Right down to the point that Saiki is completely obsessed with him. Why'd you have to make it weird, Saiki? It makes me kind of sad, actually. I kind of wish this character had shown up in Season 1. It would have been a really cool way of adding more characters without completely ruining the magic of the show. Another episode I'll give a lot of credit to is probably the episode with Mara and her dad. Mara's family is known for being pretty poor, and the reason of that is her dad ends up leaving the country to find more work, but he ends up borrowing money from a lot of dangerous people, and when he returns to Japan, so do his followers, and Saiki takes them out. It's probably one of the most terrifying scenes of the whole show, and honestly, I don't blame Saiki for it. He was a really good friend in this moment. It's one of the most heartwarming episodes, especially considering how dark it gets, because her dad was going to kill himself for the insurance money. What show am I watching right now? But wait, hold on one second. So Saiki uses his psychic powers to save Mara's family so she can work, saves her dad's life, and helps her go on the school trip. In a more normal anime, Saiki and Mara would be the number one ship. Not like I care about that or anything, but let's just move on. One thing I will actually give Season 2 credit for is an overarching narrative. You may have noticed that people in Saiki K don't really seem to age, and part of the reason for that is the super volcano. Saiki tries everything in his power to stop a volcano that would basically kill all of us. Better man than I am. And he basically finds a way to stop it, but for the longest time he would just reset the Earth so the volcano wouldn't go off. That's why people haven't aged for about 4 or 5 years. Every now and then you'll get episodes or references to the volcano and Saiki will realize that he can't stop it, which is why every now and then we see him training throughout the show. It's a really nice touch and they never went overboard with it, so I appreciated that. Speaking of overboard, the school play episode. It's not that funny. The jokes about what school play they should do get really old really fast, and it backtracks on Psycho's character. Because in the beginning of Season 2, he was still stuck up. But there was an episode beforehand where he wanted to leave, but then he realized that he did have friends, and he was slowly becoming liked by people. Only for him to pull the funding on the school play the very next episode. Great stuff. I might as well talk about Season 3 as well, because it's only 2 episodes, and I really do not feel like doing a separate video on Season 3. On Awakened, maybe, but not on Season 3. Basically, through another field trip, seems weird that these guys travel more than I do at this point, but through a bunch of shenanigans, they end up where the super volcano is. Saiki ends up stopping it with his clones thanks to Toritsuka and Ayura, but everybody notices that Saiki's gone, and they try to get him to talk about his powers. It's a really touching scene because we get to see just how much Saiki's friends care about him, and want him to be open with them. But in my opinion, Nendo steals the scene. He tells Saiki that he doesn't have to tell him anything. Even the bestest of friends can have secrets between them, and it doesn't mean anything's wrong. Upon rewatching this scene, I think it made Nendo my favorite character just because of how nice he is. Sure, he's a dummy, but at the same time, I'd rather hang out with a nice person than a bad person. Also, Yumahara confesses to Kaido, but that doesn't really go anywhere. Actually, I can't even be too hard on Yumahara. She actually had one of my favorite episodes with Kaido where it actually looked like they could have gotten together, but they didn't. It was a pretty solid episode. Lastly, Saiki's brother helps him get rid of his powers. It's kind of a hard scene to watch because you can tell Saiki feels bad he won't be able to help his mom out anymore. His dad, well, not so much, but his dad kind of deserves it. He wants to tell all of his classmates who are now third years that he's been having powers this whole time, but it looks like he might still have his powers. And that's basically how they end it. Well, at least until Awakened, but we'll talk about that another time. Overall, Season 2 is kind of mixed. On the one hand, I enjoy a lot of the developments they add and even some of the new characters. But, like most anime, I feel like some of the old characters could have gotten some spotlight. I'm not really a huge fan of when they introduce newer characters just to throw the old ones to the side. And like I said, if they had cut Teruhashi's episodes by a good amount, I feel like I could have enjoyed her character, but there was just way too much of her for my taste. And I know that's an unpopular opinion, but that's what you come to this channel for. Not the right opinions, actually the right opinions, but still. Still, I do think the season is worth a watch, even if the lack of an English dub does kind of hinder the series, especially with how fast they talk. But overall, Season 2 is not bad. A little mixed, but still not bad. Now please, just relax. What did you guys think though? Did you love Season 2 more than Season 1? Did you hate Season 2? Or were you just kind of in the middle about it like I am? Let me know in the comments. Please, like, subscribe, all that other nonsense. You guys basically know the drill at this point. See you next time.